Hi, I'm Daniel, and today we're going to show you how to start a fire without using matches, which is a pretty handy skill if you're ever lost in the woods, or maybe you just forgot your matches on a campout.
The three methods are flint and steel, magnifying lens, and fire by friction. The first step is always the same, no matter which method you use. Gather combustible materials. Start by collecting tinder, fine, dry material that easily bursts into flame. Find about 2 handfuls of things like pine needles, the inner bark of dead branches, dried grass, or slivers of wood shaved from a stick with a pocket knife. Then make a separate pile of kindling, larger chunks of material that burn hotter and longer than tinder, but need a little coaxing to start burning. Look for twigs about the size of a pencil. Finally, collect fuel, dead and downed wood no bigger around than your wrist, that you can feed the fire over time to keep the fire burning. Okay, now let's get into the specifics of our 3 fire starting methods. We'll start with flint and steel. You can buy ready-made flint and steel fire starters from an outdoors supply store or your local scout shop. But if you don't have one with you, try getting a spark by scraping the blade of your pocket knife against a piece of flint, a hard gray rock that fractures easily. Form your tinder into a nest about the size of a softball. Hold the flint just above the tinder and direct your sparks into the tinder. Nurse the spark into a flame by blowing gently on the tinder when you see ignition. Once you have a flame, gradually add tinder, then fuel. Okay, method number 2, the magnifying lens. Most of us have played around with using a magnifying glass to focus the sun and make things smoke, or at least get hot. Same principle here. If you don't have a magnifying glass handy, you can substitute any curved lens, like eyeglasses, camera lenses, or the lenses from binoculars or telescopes. Hold the lens so the sunlight goes through the lens onto a point in your tinder. Then wait. And wait. And wait. The technique takes a while, but eventually the tinder will smoke, and then burn. Blow gently to get the flame going, and then slowly add kindling, followed by fuel. And now, last but not least, fire by friction. Scouts used to start fires all the time using a bow and spindle, and you'll need several elements to try this one yourself. Any curved piece of wood can serve as the bow. You can use a piece of nylon cord or a shoestring as a bowstring. Cords from a tent, pack, or tarp will work too. Use a piece of dry hardwood for the spindle. The hand block can be another section of hardwood. Carve a depression into the hand block to fit the top of the spindle. Finally, you need a fireboard. Use a dry piece of softwood and whittle a notch into the wood to hold the spindle. Place some tinder under the notch. Now comes the tricky part. Wrap the bowline firmly around the spindle and place the spindle into the fireboard. Use the hand block to hold the spindle steady. Begin moving the bow slowly back and forth, gradually increasing the tempo until you have a brisk pace going. With the right wood and conditions, you will create sawdust that should smolder and generate an ember. Transfer the sawdust ember to your tinder and gradually blow the fire to life, adding kindling, then fuel to keep the fire burning. Developing any skill takes practice, and fire starting without matches is no exception. So take some time and work on your fire starting, because this is a survival skill you'll be glad to know if and when the time comes to start a fire and you find yourself matchless.